Hello, everyone. Welcome to what used to be the 21 Hats podcast and is now the Business Advantage TV podcast, but might be the 21 Hats podcast again. Don't worry, we'll get this figured out one of these days, and I'll explain it all in an upcoming episode. Meanwhile, I'm your host, Lauren Feldman. This week, our business owners talk about whether their businesses need another round of government support, whether, in the age of COVID, they have started monitoring their employees' behavior away from the office, and whether there are aspects of running a business they would like to be better at. One thing they say they have all mastered is taking action when an employee has to be shown the door. As Jay Goltz puts it, if we didn't figure out how to fire, we're not on this show because we're out of business at this point. Plus, Paul Downs tells us whether he kept the promise he made in our last episode to see if he could connect with someone at Google to discuss his AdWords campaign. Spoiler alert, he did not. Even in good times, owning and running a business can be a lonely pursuit. Our hope is that these weekly conversations will, if nothing else, let owners know they are not alone in facing these challenges. This week's lineup features Karen Clark Cole, who is CEO of Blink, a user experience research and design firm in Seattle. Paul Downs, who is founder and CEO of Paul Downs Cabinet Makers, which is based outside of Philadelphia and makes custom conference tables, and Jay Goltz, whose companies in Chicago include a picture frame business, artist frame service, and a home furnishing store, Jason Home. The episode is titled, There's a Thin Line Between Confident and Delusional. Last time we spoke, Paul, we talked a lot about digital marketing and we gave you some homework to do. You were going to see if you could make contact with an actual human being at Google and see if you could figure anything out about your AdWords campaign through the years.
No, I can't blame Google because I actually didn't really try to dig up a number and call somebody to talk to Google. What I did was I checked with my AdWords guy and said, hey, what do you think about this whole concept of there's a Google person? And his take on it was that was true for a time, that he ran an AdWords agency with multiple clients and a big spend. And he used to have a person who came down from New York every month. And that stopped a couple of years ago. And now, he said, I have no way of verifying this, that Google outsourced all their support and a lot of their customer relationships to India, and it's been pretty bad since then. And so I started looking into other things besides just Google, trying to take a look at my entire digital campaign and think about the things we could do. And I'm sort of in the middle of that process right now. So you could call that a failure on my part if you want. I think that would be fair.
Okay, I will.
What would be terrible would be if I called Google and there was a helpful person on the other end who immediately fixed my AdWords campaign, and then I would just look stupid. So I suspect that won't happen, but I haven't tried it yet.
Are you going to?
Possibly. After these conversations on the podcast, I tend to sort of retreat like a whipped dog from whatever plan I had going in. So maybe you guys will actually get me to do it.
I think you should do it.
One thing I didn't really bring up in the last conversation was that every interaction I've ever had with Google was from their end designed to get me to get more clicks from Google. And that's how they declare victory. Like, we gave you more clicks, what's the problem? And there's nothing about any of the discussions I've had since the last podcast that led me to believe that their goal is any different. So, as I said, rather than just dive into that and have an interaction with Google, I'm thinking about my entire digital marketing strategy. I've been talking to my AdWords guy, I've been talking to my web guys, my SEO guys, and we've we asked for RFPs from 2 different digital marketing agencies, because I'm more interested in...
Yay, you're outsourcing. Listen to that.
See what could be done, because I knew that there were more things than we were doing. And we heard about things like geofencing, which are very interesting, where if you're not familiar with the term, you can identify target addresses that you're interested in and then identify all the people who work there through their mobile phones and then serve them ads. So that's an interesting strategy because we could go after architecture firms or anybody we thought was a potential client. And there's a whole world of these kind of dark arts approaches that I'm just getting my head around before I decide to do one thing or another. And so I'm sorry that I haven't been able to give you a lot of news of progress, but that's sort of how I roll with these things.
All right. Well, we'll pick that up with Laura again next time. So I want to talk about what I think is kind of the big news today for business owners, which is that negotiations in Congress about another stimulus package that would help individuals and business owners those negotiations seem to have broken down. Marco Rubio, the senator from Florida, tweeted that Congress isn't going to pass more COVID-19 relief before the election. I think that's what most people believe is the case at this point. I'm curious what you guys think about that.
We already got ours, and so we're not, regardless of what happens, we're not planning to apply for more. But I think there's a lot of companies that need it for sure. Jay, what do you think?
It was a lifesaver. I shudder at the thought if I wouldn't have gotten that where I'd be today. So it did work.
The PPP that you did get.
Yeah, the first round was it worked and it did what it was supposed to do. And my businesses are open. We're doing fine. So I personally would not try to take more money because I don't need it and there'd be no reason to do it. But I certainly know there's lots of businesses that are in the entertainment business, the catering. There's lots of businesses through no fault of their own need more money, and I hope that they can help those companies out. So the whole thing with the payroll deductions, not having to pay your payroll taxes, to me is just insane. I don't know who's going to do that. They're saying don't collect the taxes for the rest of the year and then double up after the first. Like, why would someone do that? So I don't know how that's helpful.
We were wondering. We cannot figure out why anyone would do that. It just seems bad.
Yeah. Terrible.
Yeah, I didn't even mention it to my employees because it's so stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's same with us.
And something's got to be pretty stupid before you don't mention it to your employees. This one did fit that category. Yeah.
Paul, what are you thinking in terms of further rescue loans or stimulus?
Well, I am glad that we got it. I think it's kind of miraculous that for one moment the two warring sides were able to agree on something that helped a lot of people. In retrospect, I think we probably would have survived at least until today without it, but it made my life a lot easier. And I have more cash on hand right today than I've ever had in the business. But I'm not sure that...
Can you explain that, Paul? Because the purpose of that loan obviously was to keep people employed, and a large percentage of it had to be paid out, at least under the initial terms of the loan, paid out to employees. How did it result in you having more cash than ever?
Mostly because we were about to have more cash than ever anyway. We were coming off a string of good months in terms of profitability, and then the receipt of a couple of payments for very large jobs where we basically got all the money at the end. So I probably would have had about $400,000 on May 1st, and I ended up with about $700,000 on May 1st because of the PPP loan. So that has given me all the way through the summer the ability to ignore the danger signs that I see for my business and commit to keeping people employed today. I've been much less conservative about employment than I would have been because I've got this huge cash cushion. And some of that is like I could pay back the whole PPP loan. I got $347,000 and I've got 700 and some in the bank right now. And prior to 2020, I would normally have anywhere between 150 and 300 on any given day. So much more comfortable cushion. Now, part of that is because I stopped paying myself. And part of that is because we were lucky with the timing of payments, and part of that is the PPP loan. And so it all looks great today. Now, my business is going to be affected in the medium and long term by the COVID situation. So would I take another PPP loan? I mean, if they offered it to me and said, do you think you're going to be affected by COVID? I would say, yeah, and I would take the money. And then if it turned out I didn't need it, I'd give it back. But I would be willing to get more. The other thing they could do would be to make the expenses that we had associated with the first loan actually deductible, which I believe was the intent of Congress. And then the IRS issued a regulation saying, no. So the PPP money that we have forgiven ends up being taxable to the owner in a way. And I haven't really figured out how much it is, but that's a little bit of a dark cloud in my thinking.
So correct me if I'm wrong. The reason why you have cash is because, unlike my business that was absolutely door locked, business stop for 2 months, so I was paying people with that money, because you're not a retailer and you're working in a factory, you didn't have any complete shutdowns, correct?
Well, we never completely shut down because the sales and engineering project management was able to work from home. The factory shut down for 6 weeks, but then when we came back, we had work to do. And the PPP loan really encouraged me to get those people back into work as soon as we possibly could.
But did you use that money to pay them while they were home?
I didn't get the money until April 28th, and that's the day we opened. So
okay, so the answer is, the difference between you and I on this category is, I took my employees off of unemployment and paid them to sit home. You didn't. That's why you have the cash, and that's why I use the cash.
Right. The day we got shut down by the state, I told everybody who wasn't able to actually work, you're now laid off. Go get unemployment. And they did. And then when they came back on, then we started paying them out of PPP funds.
I'm guessing I got the money sooner than you did. That's why I was able to use it and take them off unemployment. So
I didn't get it until the day after the program ended.
Right. That's the difference. So people who have the money because they didn't use it to pay their employees at home. The people who don't have the money to use it used it to replace unemployment. So it really depends on whether your business was shut down, and now that Paul mentioned it, I didn't think about it, the timing of when you got the money. So there's all kinds of scenarios out there. Some people used up all the money. Some people are sitting on the money. Some people are going to pay back the money. It's all over the place.
Well, there's also the issue of forgiveness. Paul, do you expect to be able to get the entire loan forgiven?
I did the calculation, and we would get about 300,000 forgiven, as far as I know, although nobody really knows how these calculations will work out. So my bank is supposed to be setting up a calculator that we would use, but they haven't really done it yet because the law kept changing. So I don't know when I even have to make the first payment on this thing.
You have to apply for forgiveness, and I think you can do that now, can't you?
Yes and no. I just got a notice from the bank.
Not my bank.
Yeah, no, I'm with the big bank bought my little bank, and now they're telling, this just happened yesterday. Well, there's a line. It depends when you got it. It's still not orderly, I can assure you. There's still a lot of things up in the air. So
yeah, my bank just said, don't do anything. Just
right.
We'll tell you when you can apply.
Yes, ours pretty much said the same thing.
And so I'm like, okay, it's 1% money at the worst case scenario, so I'm not worried about it.
And doing nothing is always something we aspire to. So when someone tells us to do nothing, grab it.
Yeah.
Karen, where do you stand in terms of getting your loan forgiven?
We're the same. So we believe that we fully qualify, but we're, again, doing nothing, which is happy to take that, as Jay points out.
The easiest thing to do.
There's plenty of other things to do.
Yeah.
Karen, is your business still holding up?
Yeah, we're we're fortunate. But we are, we had kind of a delayed effects of all the shutdowns. So our August, July have been slow and losses for us. They're typically slower months for us anyway, but they were bigger losses than we would have liked, for sure, and planned for. So now we're just trying to, we see the day after Labor Day is the beginning of the year. Essentially, it's we call it the 100-day march, and so that's when everything just starts firing up full cylinders for all of our clients for the rest of the year. So we are really focused on closing business, watching our, making sure we've got the right balance of employees and contractors and work. That's always our biggest constant moving target, to balance that so we don't have anybody, what we call, sitting on the bench.
I want to ask you guys about one aspect of this that I really haven't seen discussed a lot. What kind of approach have you taken with your own employees about their behavior, especially their behavior away from the office, which presumably is something you wouldn't have had any interest in discussing in the old times. But now, if somebody's going out to parties or traveling or not being careful, that can have a huge impact on your company. Have you addressed that with your employees?
I'll tell you how we do it is, we can't control their lives. There's no way. But what we do is we control what we can, which is our office environment. So we've only got one of our 5 offices open. California is not allowed to be open yet. So in Seattle, we're open. We're still encouraging everyone to work from home whenever possible. And majority of people are. But we have some in-person research studies that we need to keep running. And so, the whole office is set up according to the protocol of our governor and the state, with plexiglass and dots on the floor and signs everywhere and capacity in each room and sanitization stations everywhere. And then we take everyone's temperature when they come in, and they have to fill in a health form. And so that's our way of protecting ourselves. And, of course it's not foolproof, but that's the most that we can do. And then we have all kinds of protocols in place. If somebody is sick, or they feel sick, or they're waiting for test results, or any of those things, we have a shutdown protocol.
Jay, how about you? If one of your employees wants to go to a motorcycle rally in South Dakota, are you okay with that?
Yeah, we had that, and I had a long talk with all the key managers, because Chicago put out a notice saying if anybody's going to the following states, they need to quarantine. So we went through the whole, are we supposed to interrogate them every weekend where they're going? And we came to the conclusion, and we all felt good about this conclusion after 30 minutes, we're having them sign off a thing that says, if you go to any of the following states, you are to quarantine for 2 weeks. It is your responsibility to tell us if you're going to these states. I don't want to turn my managers into interrogators. And if they're dumb enough to go to Wisconsin, as an example, and then come back.
You're in Chicago, so Wisconsin is right next door.
Yes, it's 30 minutes away, so 40 minutes away. So we're putting it on the employees to self-report and getting the managers out of the middle of it. And if someone comes back and tells us they went there, we're quarantining them, because we're following all the rules. Because if anything happens, I want to be able to say we followed the rules, and I'm trying to keep everybody safe. So we've had we probably had 3 people that have stayed home for 14 days because someone in their family got it. I think I got 110 employees. I think we only actually had 1 or 2 that actually tested positive. The rest were precautionary. So knock on wood, 6 months into this, we're holding our own. But it has brought up issues that you never had to deal with before about, are you the parole officer? Are you supposed to interrogate everyone Monday morning? What'd you do this weekend? And we decided that was on them. And so far, so good.
Have you had anything with employees snitching on each other?
No, though that was the concern. They come back and they start talking about, I was in Wisconsin, and I hope we made it clear enough to them to speak up themselves. So I'm happy to report. I've always said from the beginning, I'm trying to control collateral damage. Out of 100, we haven't had any collateral damage. Every single employee out of the 110 is here, and some of them are quite nervous, and some of them have anxiety. But we've gotten through it, and we've got the plexi up, just like Karen was saying. We're doing everything right, and so far so good. But it's been challenging, to say the least.
Are you using the approach of trying to educate them on where it's safe and where it's not, and what's okay and what's not? And
telling them exactly. Yeah. Absolutely. We're telling them what the whole story is.
And then have you had anyone on staff who just thinks the whole thing's a hoax? And what do you do about that?
Shoot them. No, I'm just kidding. Can we? It's Did humor leave us too?
Well, Laura's not here. I'm trying to be like her, but I'm not as funny.
All right, nice. That was okay. No, I don't have anyone here that would be a little difficult to deal with, frankly, given that I do know I have a friend whose mother who died. She's 67 years old, went in and died. Yeah, we as a company, I think most of the people here take this very seriously. I have not heard about anybody that was mocking it. I haven't heard of anybody that's rolling their eyes.
They're out there, though, right? I mean,
they're out there. I don't know they're here, and they certainly are out there. You can turn the TV on and see it every night. I don't think there's anyone that works for me who has made that clear. That wouldn't go over well with anybody because this is very serious, and there's 193,000 dead people now. So
and I wonder though how that whole we have to be careful of when you fire somebody. You have to have. Well, actually, we don't legally have to have cause for dismissal, but it doesn't hold up in court very well. So I would hope that this would, if it's a reason for dismissal.
Yeah, I haven't had any of those problems, luckily. So I feel for someone that does, because I don't know how that would be a difficult thing to deal with, that in the situation that somebody is not being respectful to the situation. Because I got to tell you, the opposite. Most of my employees are the ones I've talked to, everybody's very concerned about this.
Paul, how have you approached this with your employees?
Well, first of all, we're a much smaller company, and so it's easier with 21 working in the office and the shop. Our policy has been that if you want to work from home and you can work from home, you can do it. And if you're concerned about COVID, you can modify your schedule to the extent possible. The shop, we're also wearing masks all the time. Whenever you can see another person, you should be masked. If you're in your own office with the door shut like I am right now, you can take your mask off. And my guys seem to be pretty serious about the masking. I mean, we've just gone through a whole summer out on the shop floor where it's been pretty hot, and they're working with tools and sanding and what have you. And a mask it's uncomfortable, but I didn't see anybody scoffing at it. In terms of a policy, we just say, if you're going to go to something that's risky, some big gathering, you need to notify us. And then we sort of figure out what to do about it. I haven't been notified by anybody that they're about to go to Sturgis or any of these things. I don't think any of them have. We've had a couple of people who said, like one of my guys this week said, his daughter was at a sleepover and it turned out somebody there was exposed, so he's home for the week and got tested just in case. But I haven't really been as vigilant about it as I could be. I'm not following whatever the governor has to say because we're not traveling much for work, and my guys drive to work. The one who used to take a train is now sharing a car ride in 2 days a week with one of the other employees. And I think that we've kind of settled on, we're going to sort of act as if everybody might be sick while we're here and then not get too much more excited about it. And that may be a mistake, but so far it's worked.
I have to add, I forgot, my entire accounting department's working from home, which is, 3-4 people, and, not great. It's okay, but it's like I'm literally the only one here sometimes, and there's times where it's inconvenient or problematic with invoices. It's okay, but it's not great.
I would say that the biggest effect for us is just that it's much harder to talk to people when you're wearing a mask, particularly depending on what kind of mask. We've got one worker who insists on like one of these homemade cloth ones with a coffee bag inside or something. And she already is not a native English speaker, and it's just really hard to understand her. But we're trying to make the effort and accommodate, just like we would anybody who's got some kind of impediment. And it's like a 5% degradation. Let's say 5 to 15% degradation in communication efficiency at any given moment. But we're working around it. It's just everybody gets it.
All right. So in the time we have left, I'd like to try something a little bit different. I'd like to ask each of you, is there something when it comes to running your businesses that you wish you were better at? Anybody want to go first?
I think Jay should go first.
There you go. Because I'm the oldest. Well, I recognized years ago that I'm 75% entrepreneur and 25% manager, which means that I get distracted and I like figuring out ad campaigns and writing copy and figuring out new ways to make customers happy. And the everyday having meetings and following up on reports is just that's why I didn't go into accounting. So it's a regular little struggle. I once, not long ago, I said to my production manager, who's been with me for 23 years, I said, Dale, I'm 75% entrepreneur and 25% manager. He goes, no, you're not. You're 100% entrepreneur, which, and I appreciate him saying that because there was some truth to it.
So have you hired somebody to be the manager?
What I did is I think I have 5 key managers, and every last one of them has been with me for more than 20 years. So I think I made up for that by having key employees that are in charge of their thing and keeping them around. And it's working. Would it be better if I was more of that person? Yeah, sure. But I've also gotten to the point where I don't want to. At some point in life, you just say, you know what, I could make more money if I did this, this, and this. And I just decided, yeah, I probably could, but that's okay. It's okay.
You mean you would save money in the business and therefore you would make more money?
That if I was to discipline myself more to be a better manager, maybe I would make more money, but that would require me doing more than I really want to do. And it's okay. So
I asked you if there was something you wish you were better at. And it sounds like the answer is no.
No, I just said
you could be better at it, but you're okay with the way it is.
Well, when you talk to someone like me, if I wanted to, I could. So I could if I wanted to. I would like to think whatever I would need to do. Like you can't make someone better at writing, creative advertising copy, But could I dig in and make myself be a better manager if I wanted to be? Yeah, sure. I just have decided that it's good enough. And there's a breakthrough. It took me many, many, many years to figure out in business, at least this is my personal opinion, that there is such a thing as good enough, that good enough is good enough. And that if you don't accept that, you can spend, which is what I used to do, your whole life torturing yourself with trying to be perfect. And I've accepted that, yeah, I'm not, and I'm good enough at it. And you know what? I'm a much happier person now. Much happier.
And I always say that you want to focus on what only you can do. And that's being an entrepreneur, because not everyone has that in their blood.
Right.
And so you want to outsource everything else. So the minute you get a chance to hire somebody else who's really good at that thing that you don't super love. And chances are they love it and they're really good at it. So
the entrepreneur albatross is torturing ourselves about everything we should be better at. And I'm suggesting to people, like, if you're making
That's what I'm trying to do, Jay. That's my job.
And you failed miserably. I would say in this particular case that if you're making enough money, if there, and I believe there is such a word as enough money, and you're happy, like, you know what, it's good enough. We don't have to answer. One of the beauties of being I don't have to answer to a board of directors that's going to, tell me I want you to have those meetings. It's like, no, I'm not going to, because I don't want to. Like, that to me is the number one aspect of being an entrepreneur. I'm going to do what I want, and I don't have to answer to anybody. Paul, you with me?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the whole question is sort of a weird one because
I agree. I'm like, I don't know.
It's like it's premised on you wanting to get a different result than the one you're getting,
or a better result.
So I'm sort of with Jay. Like, I'm fairly comfortable with where my company is. Okay, COVID is sort of a meteor strike from out of nowhere, but in other respects, I'm pretty happy with the way things are going. And so that if I wanted to fix myself, it would mean that I would be heading in a different direction, more growth or bigger car or whatever. And that's just not me. So,
but Paul, even in the last episode that we taped, you brought up the issue of digital marketing, and I don't think you used the words that you wished you were better at it, but you expressed you talked about the evolution, how you've handled it differently through the years. And I think the implication was that you're still learning and that you would like to do it better. Am I wrong about that?
Well, but getting to Karen's point, that's not a question of whether I have digital marketing skills. It's a question of how I see how I see
best use of your time.
whether I need to be performing the specialist functions that the company needs to do, or whether I'm comfortable with somebody else doing it. And I'm usually very comfortable, and I don't think it's necessarily a problem or something I need to fix. It's just for, I'm picking certain battles just because of the scale we're at. Karen has a different resource base than I do to hire people. And I have a different resource base than Jay, and we all have, we're just in different places, so we do different things. I wouldn't mind being able to type 120 words a minute with no errors. How about that? There's a just straight out skill that everybody would benefit from. Or
I don't even think about
typing. I can't do the texty thing for anything. If I could figure out how to do that, it would save me minutes a week, and I would be much happier.
Lauren, I walk around with a stack of magazines. Like, I'm not kidding you. I put them in my bag. I take them out of my bag. I put them on the table in a nice place where it encourages me to read them. And every day I say, I wish I could read faster. I wish I could read more. And I literally just carry them around. And I kind of hope that if by holding it, something will seep in because I really want to know what's in there.
How's that working for you?
Even on the airplane, I'm like, okay, this is the flight for the magazine. And I couldn't even get through it because I'm a slow reader. And I just thought, I wish I was faster. So that's something that torments me. And I think it would make me a better entrepreneur and business owner and all that good stuff if I could get through more content.
Yeah, actually, let me just add something. That when I was 17, I was a junior in high school. My mother said, you got to learn to type. And this was back in 1977. And she said, you're going to take the typing class. And I did. And I was the only guy in it. And that's probably had more effect on my outlook towards either doing stuff myself or not than anything else. Because I can actually type about 90 words a minute. So I can do all kinds of stuff just myself that would be way more of a pain to explain to other people. So I think that there's something about having funny skills that really changes your outlook towards your own business. If I couldn't type, I would do it completely differently.
I'm going to have to count how many words I type two-fingered now because I don't even know.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
Paul, I'm with you. I took typing in high school, and I was completely bored by it and thought it was ridiculous. And it was probably the most important thing I learned in high school.
I agree. I say that all the time. I think it was 7th grade typing, best class I ever took.
All right. Well, I didn't take typing, so that's one of those.
It's not too late. You can.
On my deathbed, I'm going to say my last words on my deathbed is going to go, if only I would have taken typing, my life would have worked out differently.
You can still. Maybe you should take it as a night class.
Wow. All right. I want to say something extremely serious for everyone who's listening who's an entrepreneur. Ambition is our greatest asset, and it's also our greatest weakness. That if you read the stories of some of these super successful people, they are tortured individuals that have messed up lives. And I'm telling you, at some point you can say, you know what? I'm doing really well. I have a nice life and everything's just fine. You don't have to spend your whole life torturing yourself.
Yeah, but you can't stop the hamster wheel just like that. It's not that easy.
But you guys have taken this question. It's really interesting to me to the extremes. Either, very focused, smaller details like the ability to type, or big macro issues like, are you happy with the way your business is basically performing? And I really thought I would hear from you something more along the lines of, I still haven't figured out how to fire people well.
We're all really good at that.
Yeah. That's 101.
I figured that out.
Yeah. Okay, good answer.
You want us to fire you right now?
Stand in line.
You know what? You've hit a core of something very interesting to what Paul just said. And Karen, yeah, if you didn't figure out how to fire, we're not on this show because we're out of business at this point. So we've been in survival mode since the day we started. We had to develop the certain critical skills to run your business, and hiring and firing is certainly two of them.
Yeah,
and the rest of it,
hiring's a whole lot harder than firing.
Yeah.
But more fun.
The only reason that you have to fire is because you did a lousy job hiring. So
probably.
That's not true.
I think it's usually true.
I mean, you can have to fire people. I mean, we call them layoffs, but they're firings for no fault of your own. Just
Okay, if it's a layoff, but that's not firing, it's a layoff.
All right, so I'm going to give you one answer that's probably more in the spirit of the question. I wish I was less interested in facts and more driven by belief, because I've seen it be very effective with other business owners. People who can just set a goal for themselves and like, I'm going to get there, and now all I have to do is figure out how do I get there. And I'm much more caught up in what's actually going on, and that gives you endless opportunities to think of why things are going to prevent you from getting to any particular place. So wow. I tend to wallow in that.
That's heavy. That I get what you're saying. That's heavy. It's really about confidence, and it's about I can pull this off. And that's another core entrepreneur thing. And then there's sometimes where you have that confidence and you're playing wrong because you don't have the facts like you have. So there's a combo thing going on there. There's a thin line between confident and delusional, and I've been on both sides of it.
That is a good point to end on, I think. As always, my thanks to Karen Clark-Cole, Paul Downs, and Jay Goltz. Appreciate it, guys. Thanks for listening, everybody. This episode was produced by Jess Thuberon, founder of Blank Word Productions. Remember, we started the 21 Hats podcast to help business owners feel a little less isolated, to let them know they aren't the only ones fighting these battles. If you got something out of this conversation, please help us reach more people. Tell a friend, subscribe and review us wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Twitter at 21_hats. And let me know if you have a question or a comment or a topic you'd like us to cover. My email address is lfeldman@21hats.com. See you next time.